Welcome to Determined to Succeed. I'm your host, Dawn, also known as a Unique Connector. So I'm really thrilled to have this conversation today. And it's kind of weird when we were just talking before hitting record that it's really our second time that we've officially met. And we've been talking for 40 minutes nonstop. And it's like we just met each other. Like it's not like we've known each other for years. Like that's what it feels like. And so it's crazy how networking can be so powerful. And Jeff is the one who introduced us. So what do you even got to say about that? When I said like it feels like we have known each other for years.
I actually forgot who introduced us, but I feel like as you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, we could just like talk forever. I'm like, wait, I've only met you twice. Like, I know you forever, Dawn. This is crazy. But that's the power, like you said, of connecting and this virtual universe. And I feel like we are like that deeply connected that it's not like just saying, like we do have this like deep connection, shared values, shared interests, which I knew before we even got on this call, but like now it's just like coming to light and it's an amazing thing. And it's also the power of, when you know good people, then the people they connect you with tend to have those similar, mindset and values and so it's just this continuous like flow of goodness that comes. And that's why I think both of us share this, but like let me know of like this like passion for connection and people because it's like such a beautiful thing when it works. And when you're doing it with the right people, it works. So
It
case in
can.
point, exhibit A, here we are.
Exhibit A. And then this is where too, when we were talking before of like, what do we want to talk about today? And I just loved hearing how you felt similar to me of when you make introductions to people. And some people are like, well, don't you get paid for that? No, we don't always get paid for it because we see the goodness in people and we want to make that connection because we know it could be something good for somebody's future, for their career. And as you said earlier, too, empower them in their leadership journey. And that's the part that really stuck out to me.
I love that. I always say we do get paid. We just get paid intrinsic benefits. And then, you're always going to have the person that says intrinsic benefits don't pay the bills. I'm like, that's true. I get it. So we were also talking a little bit about balance. And so I think there's also a very healthy balance, but can you really put a price on changing somebody's life or like you said, career? And, I know you get these too, but those notes of like, I just landed a job or the connection you made me got me funding. And I get these, I'm blessed to get them all the time. And it's just like the most they make my day every time, and it's like there's nothing more beautiful than that, I think. And I was also saying just like seeing transformation, whether it's people, projects, things, just seeing that evolution from like going from one place to another. And that transformation is like for me, it's at the core of everything that I love to do. So nothing better to show that than a connection, and just through people. So I think too,
Yeah.
there's many ways to like connect with your like to get a little deep, like your inner self and your soul. And for me, I used to do a lot of that through books when I was very young. People don't believe it, but I was extremely shy and really barely ever talked for years. I always say I make up for it now, but like, and I do, but back in the day, I didn't say anything for many, many, many years till much later in life. And now I feel like I've sort of shifted and I still love to read. And I think that's really important, but I do a lot of my connection is through people.
Mm.
So I think, people have different ways of doing it, but at the end of the day, it's all good. So we're lucky that I'm so grateful that I'm here with you and that we made it
Yeah.
finally. And like, this is going to be fun. It's going to be
Well, look at that. Two shy girls
fun.
turning
There
into
you
these connectors.
go.
And this
They
is,
make for some great people and some great leaders. So
yeah. Well, I was going to say, what do you feel like even was in the pivotal moment in even your journey and how the leader that you've become? Like, what do you feel like is the thing that switched for you?
so when I was 16, I left home and I moved to New York City on my own, and that was my dream. I don't even like from as far back as I can remember, I just wanted to like move to New York and like you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And just like I was enamored by the opportunities really of the city. I feel like almost like I don't know because I'm American, but I feel like almost like an immigrant coming to a new country. I was like,
Mm.
this is my chance to like break free of the small town that I grew up in, and I felt very limited. So I always say, like, looking back, I obviously had a lot of things inside of me that I wasn't even aware of, and probably still not. And I think for most people, they're not even aware of their full potential, and I had seen it firsthand. I think that we all have so much more capabilities than we give ourselves credit for, and it is others and good mentors, and that was also what I got and what I had, especially in New York City in those pivotal years, and I was really lucky that saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. And once they helped bring some of it like further from deep inside of me to like a little bit out, it just like exploded like metaphysically. And actually, when I was 18, I started my first not-for-profit organization when I joined New York City, and it was simply from feeling like something should exist. I did some research and I saw that it didn't, and I was like, we need to fill it. And oversimplifying it, but that was my first real lesson in leadership, and it gave me a chance I definitely wasn't ready for. It definitely sucked at, but I think that I got a taste of what it was like to lead a team and to help and like do something really meaningful in people's lives. And also that I could do it. And I had no money and I was impacting so many lives, and marriages came out of it and such and such. And so many people were helped. And the impacts are still being felt now. And this is over 10 years ago, close to 15. So like, just there's no price on that. And so I think for me, the pivotal moment was just moving to New York City and getting a chance, like an opportunity, which again, I feel very like blessed and lucky to have had. But I think a lot of people get opportunities and don't take them too. And from day one, like I remember standing in high school hallway, just being like, I would like nudge my new friends and be like, guys, you're so lucky. Like, look what is around you. Like, all I saw was like opportunity. And from day one, I started working at 18, and my first like real job. And I said yes to everything. I was always out and about. Now I just love to sleep. But back then I was doing, I was always hustling and moving and meeting and reading and helping. And so a lot of my even connections now come from that like time. And I just went all in. So I think that's something we started talking about too. I don't do anything. Somebody taught me, don't do anything with half your heart, and I always kept that with me. Like I'm either in or I'm out. And that doesn't mean that I can't multitask and do many things, but I want all of them to be done with all my heart. And if I can't, that's when I know that I'm either doing too much or I'm not doing the right things. And that's for me a sign to shift, like if my heart's not in it. So yeah, that's really how I got started. And I think it was the catalyst for everything that I'm doing and hopefully gonna do in the future. So
Mm. Well, I love that reminder too, because I've noticed myself too, where sometimes I'm like, why did I take action so much in that one thing, but not the other thing? Or, why did I just kind of let that brush off? Because I guess I realized
yeah.
I wasn't passionate about it. And I think that resonates probably with a lot of people. And when you were just talking about your journey, it kind of just gave me this aha moment that I guess I didn't really realize that I did this week. But um, my one client, their son is going off to college, and he was so excited.
Oh,
Um, I instantly, I don't know why, but now it's like even clicking again. Now, when you were just saying that, it's like a clean slate. It's like when you make new connections too, it's a clean slate. They don't know anything about your journey. You don't know anything about their journey. And look at all the cool new things that you can learn about them and be curious about. And I think that's the part of, to even circle back to what you were saying earlier about leadership. That's what it is about leadership. You're going to keep adding more tools and tools and resources and things into your toolbox from getting to know more people and to getting to know more resources and knowledge. And I don't know why, but yeah, the whole clean slate, because you probably went to New York City with a clean slate in a way of like, I can start fresh. Nobody knows I was this shy girl, and I can, see what could come out of this. The world's my oyster, because that was kind of like me in college also. Nobody knew me, and I loved it.
100%, 100%. And I also, when I was younger, through elementary school, I was bullied like for many, many years. And I just remember I gained like a new like awareness of like, I was also really lucky. I had such incredible experiences from the day that I left. Because when I was younger, at that age, I thought that this was the world. I was like, oh my God, I'm this like alone, and like this is just like my reality. I really didn't know anything else. And I always say to this day, thank God, like I had an option to see something different and to like break out of it, because I could have just lived that way my whole life. But, I think just like having that, like knowing that, okay, now there's like all this like new again, opportunity, but like that this is not the way the rest of the world is. And on the contrary, there's like so much to do. I had that fire in me because I didn't have it growing up. I had a new appreciation for it that I think I lived in New York City for 11 years after that. And I don't think I lost it ever. Every day I woke up with like a fire to like take on that day. And that was how I knew after 11 years that it was time to move on, because towards 10 and a half, I started to lose a little bit of that magic. And I was like, okay, there's your sign, because you want to, do everything with your whole heart. Like your heart is starting to leave, and you always want to keep your heart at the front of everything, in my opinion. So passion is powerful, so yeah.
Yes, it's powerful. And I think that's too another thing that we were talking about earlier is just life is short. And it's unfortunate, even for me, I had to have that health wake up call, slap in the face for me to realize, the momentum was already running low. And it's like, why do we let ourselves do that? And so for you, even too, how you said it earlier when you were in New York, like, look at you guys have so many opportunities, be grateful. And so when you're even out and about, because I know you are out and about all the time, you're doing corporate job, you're doing your own work, you're out networking, hosting events, you know, how are you reminding yourself different things like that to be grateful when you're so busy all the time,
It's
juggling all?
such a good question. And it's definitely like I don't want to say a struggle, but something I think about a lot. And I think I also was lucky to have, I did a lot of also volunteer work. Again, something I only realized later in life, that I was like so lucky to have those values instilled at such a young age, that I was always around. I did a lot of work with the elderly. That's a population that I have a big inclination towards. And that was one of the organizations that I started, was to work with elderly people. And so I think that being in that demographic, I think also gives you a big sense of like kind of like YOLO, and that life is short. And I also have a lot of my friends have either, well, not a lot, but I've lost friends to disease, overdose, things like that. Also at a young age, I've always kind of been very connected to like the depth of life, also through people, of course. So I think that that kind of gives you a new appreciation. And I also think that, life does tell you what you need to know. And if you don't learn lessons, through kind of like regular ordinary life, or like take life by its horns, like it will take you, and you will learn them the hard way, I think. So I'm always like, I'd rather kind of prevent, or at least if and when something does happen, I'll know that I have no regrets, and I did everything I could. Because then, like, you can't predict what's going to happen, only how you respond. And that I've always also felt a really strong belief that we are in control of our destiny. And I think it's impacted, even to get practical, since, we're talking networking and business, like how the salary that I asked for, and how I see myself, and self-worth and leadership. I like love that you brought that up, because it's incredible to me how connected they are to networking and business. And I think the fact that I feel that way sometimes, even with like career, and you get what you demand. And for good and for bad, sometimes I live in the clouds and I'm very unrealistic. And that's a problem sometimes. But what it does give me is ability to shoot for things that I think other people sometimes say not are not possible, because
Mm,
I have this sort of part of me is very esoteric. So thankfully I have a very strong dose of reality, and that's why I'm not like a hippie living, because I did explore that at one point in my life. Um, but like, and I do a big believer in money, and I love money, and I don't mind saying it, but I think that just I think there's that, again, balance, back to balance. Like, you do want to aspire for something that scares the heck out of you, because that is how you grow. And I
yeah.
think also from a young age, because I actually grew up in chaos in some way, shape, or form. And again, stuff that I only saw later in life. I almost like I learned how to make that work to my advantage. And that's such an important skill that I think has served me so well in everything I do. Like, I want things to be easy, and I try for that to happen in some way, shape, or form, or at least like doable. But when they're not, I don't run from it. I kind of embrace it. And I think I feel fear a lot, and I feel uncomfortable a lot. And I think that saying that, people try to push that away. And I like, actually, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, great. I feel fear now. That's cool. But it's like, will I do this thing anyway? And that's actually a lesson I learned while I was skydiving and about to jump out of the plane. And I was like, okay, now I'm scared, because I was kind of like just like chilling till we got up. And then they didn't tell me anything. And I was about to jump. And I was like to my instructor, like, hey, anything I should know before we go down? Because they like told me nothing. And he's like, no, you're good. Just like follow me. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of afraid right now. He's like, me too. He's like, okay, it's cool. You could be scared. And I was like, that is like a genius thing to say. Like, we could be scared. And like, the question is, are we going to do this thing anyway? You know? So, and then I love quotes. So there's this amazing quote that I heard, I posted on my LinkedIn actually yesterday. Whatever it is you want to do, do it because you only have so many tomorrows. And I think, it's like so true. I've also just seen so many people. I used to observe people and now I talk to them. But back in the day, I was a big observer. And I would just see like even in New York, I would stop and look around and see all these people like walk into work looking like they just wanted to die. And I'm like, if that was me, obviously there's a circumstance where you need to put food on the table. And I always felt grateful that maybe that wasn't me at the time. But like I couldn't do that. Like I would just quit that day. Like I want to be passionate. Like life is too short to not love what you're doing. All right. Like we started there, like it's like we need to love what we do. And so it's never too late too. Like if today, whoever's listening, like if you're not loving, if you're not getting up, like I get up and I'm like, I want to go to work. Like I don't have Sunday scary. I really don't. Like because it's not the right job for me if I do. And within reason, and there's reasons to stay at a job. Maybe it's to get to your next place, but like just having that intention at least like that also changes it like I'm here for this purpose and then because that and then you can be passionate about it right like it's helping me get to where I want to go so I think we do need to like advocate for ourselves and push for where we want to go and like make it happen for ourselves like we do need to do that and even like for me it's like saying no to more things I think if you push enough of the wrong things out of the way like if you don't know exactly where you want to go or what you want to say yes to like if you say no to enough of the wrong things you will get closer to your goal. So, and that's something I'm working on too. But anyway, long tangent, but yeah, just like stuff
Well, I
that
love
I'm super
that.
passionate about.
You're so passionate, and that's the part too where I did ask you earlier of like what would be success in your eyes, and I think that's the part too is we don't have this clear end deadline besides dying, unfortunately, but there's
It's
no
so
like
true.
end in the road here of like where success really is. It's evolving, it's trying new things, fearing things, taking some risks.
Sorry, John, I gotta insert another quote and I
Please
might mess this
do.
up because I'm just saying it by memory, but it's like I don't know much about life or the promises that it brings. All I know is the love that we give that defines how we live. Like I don't know where I'm ending up, but I do know that, and I said this from when I was like 5. I made a promise that like having been, at the bottom of what I was going through. Like I was like, if I ever get to a place where I'm in a position to, because I didn't even see that that was going to happen for me, let alone at 18, that I was going to be in a leadership role where people would look up to me. I was like, I'm going to do everything in my power to lift people up and like bring them to the next place. And that was the catalyst for like my whole journey of empowering people and leading people. And I still today I like that's how I check myself too. Like if I'm always like, did you do the right thing? Because then you can't have regrets. Then it doesn't matter what people say. Like I always say I have to sleep with myself at the end of the day. And like if I die today, I won't feel bad. Like I hope I don't, but like because I did my best. And I think that's a very personal thing and a question that everyone has to ask themselves. I can't tell you what your best is in every day your best looks different. But it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, you know, for me, it's like, I don't know about the end. I'm not really, it's like, as long as I lifted up and did as much good for people as I can, and that's taking into account also taking care of myself and being good to me, and like, then I'm happy. Like, I've lived my best life. So, I
Mm.
love quotes. I can go all day.
Oh, well, I love the quotes. And this is where too, you're just reaffirming me too, where sometimes, it's like taking that switch and being out of corporate and now being at home more and being home with my
It's
son. Like I'm doing
different.
the best I can. And also
Yeah.
too, it brings me joy to take a break. Work is work.
Yeah.
It will be there tomorrow. I don't know if we'll be here tomorrow. So love and enjoy. And that's like a total new shift for me, but I've been embracing it and loving it. And, I think that's the part too, where the universe brought us together. And I know thanks to Jeff who brought us
Huge
together, but
shout out to Jeff.
huge shout out to Jeff. And this is where I'm just so thankful for this virtual world because, would we have ever had that opportunity to meet? I don't know, maybe, hopefully, but I think there's reasons. And so I just really appreciate you and I hope you keep shining bright and listen.
You
I
know,
hope the listeners got a lot of, nuggets from this today because I know I did. You reaffirmed just like I'm on the right path and I know you are too. And I'm thankful that we're in each other's corner and just proud of you. So keep shining.
likewise. Thank you so much, Dawn. Right back at you.